guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Yvonne from GingerChickRehab. I am so glad to have you back checking out what Chris and I are up to. So in today's video, we are bringing you a furniture piece. So we were in our local Goodwill. They've been a little bit down on staffing, and sometimes they get a little bit overwhelmed with donations. So one of the managers saw us in the store one day and said, hey, I got this really heavy hutch. I don't want to really move it out onto the showroom floor if I don't have to. Can you come back, take a look? Is it something that you are interested in? Because they watch our channel and they know that we flip furniture. So we ended up taking this piece. It was probably a quick decision. We didn't really probably study it enough, but maybe we wouldn't have seen it even if it was on the showroom. And until you really get your hands into a piece, do you know that it's going to be a problem child? So in today's video, we are tackling a lot of problems and showing you what we did to get through them. So from first glance, you're probably all like, well, that seems pretty innocent. That piece looks great shape. There's no problems with it. But once you start to get just a wee bit closer, you notice that one, it is red. It's that mahogany cherry veneer board. Yep, it's red in the inside too. So the heaviness isn't this guy's only problem. And then when you get a closer look, you see pieces and parts that are missing, that are scraped up. So sometimes you just got to dig in and start tackling it. The one thing that isn't a problem with this piece, that it had all its hardware. So we are going to give this a plus, a bonus here, that all the hardware, it's unique hardware. I love vintage hardware. I love that little fake keyhole that it has. If that was the only problem this hutch had, we would be in heaven. So of course a bottom piece is loose and needs to be rebrad nailed in. First, we just talked about gluing the veneer back down, filling it in with some Durham water putty or some Bondo, but then you realize it's not even attached. One thing was lifted to another thing was lifted, and it was all lifted. So it was just better just to take it all off. Now for this little piece, yep, the top piece of this decorative molding is broken off, but at least the other one is still there, so we can do the mold. We can make a mold out of it. So what Chris is going to do is he's going to tape off that area and do the hot glue trick. Have you all done the hot glue trick before, where you put hot glue over the area that you need to make a mold for, and then let that hot glue dry, pull it up, put some wood filler in it, go over to your other area that you need it to be replaced, and voila, you have a new piece. Wood filler he used was actually Durham water putty. This is a powder that you mix in with water, and then all that veneer that came off, he has lots of holes to fill on this bottom area. I don't know if moisture got to it, if heat got to it. I don't know why. You didn't really see any water damage of why that veneer board popped off like that. It just did. After that Durham water putty is dry, we need to get it sanded nice and smooth. think we have all the small little, okay, well, they're not small, issues that are on the bottom of this hutch tackled. Now we need to tackle the top. So that top is a thin layer of veneer board. Well, one, it is that cherry red color, and two, you can see the water damage, you can see the scrapes, all the marks. So Chris is going to be taking his time with a very light grit. Usually when you go to sand down, you've got your heaviest grit, like your 80 grit, but when it comes to veneer board, if you start going in hot and heavy, it'll go all the way through the veneer board. So he's trying to avoid that. So he has 220 sandpaper on, and it's just going to be a lot of passes because he's actually going to try to strip some of this down to get as natural that he can. Bless his heart to do this because I had a vision. He spent so much time sanding the top. Of course, I'm going to protect that baby. So now I'm not going to paint these entire inside of the drawers. So first off, I'm going in with some tape and taping off where the holes are. And then now I've got to deal with that it is rounded. So I'm going to build up some tape before putting plastic on. Sometimes you just have to kind of be inventive. Yeah, straight lines are much easier than curves, but the curves is a very cool feature. And I'm wondering if it was the curve that maybe made that bottom veneer come loose over time. I don't know, just a guess. Now that we're all cleaned up with some Crud Cutter deglosser, since this is a veneer board and we didn't really want to sand too awful much on the veneer board, chose the deglosser one. But now I've got to deal with where we put the water putty. Now the water putty is very porous, and so next to the other surfaces, it's not going to take in the paint quite the same. So to solve that issue of porosity, evening out the porosity, I'm putting a couple coats of shellac. Then since one, we know we didn't do a lot of scuff sanding on this piece, just didn't want to play with that veneer, and then the color that it is stained, we know we're going to have some problems with bleed through. So I have been learning that this red primer actually will stop the bleed through. So wow. So anyway, we are going to spray this entire piece. That's why I spent all that time taping off all those areas with this red primer. Oh, did that ever make quite the mess in our spray room. I told you this was a large piece and it almost fit, but usually that misting will sweep up. But I did get, I think I got everything primed on this bad boy. Okay, let's see if this red primer is going to do the job. So now I have my TrueCoat 360 handheld sprayer with Kills paint and primer in one, ready to paint this up white. here's where you can really tell the difference in the inside of those cubbies, that it is not working. I think it's because that it wasn't sealed in, like it was raw, where the veneer board probably had some type of a clear coat put on it. The inside did not. Fortunately, I didn't take video. I don't know if it was my frustrations of how red that became. So what I ended up having to do is I put a couple coats of shellac to seal that in, and then another coat of the red primer, which then of course made me have to repaint the whole thing because the misting then overdid it. But I should have added the video in, but it was just the frustrations of like, oh my goodness gracious. The rest of the hutch painted up beautifully. That's what it made me think, that it was the clear coat that was not sealed in the inside of those, which I really didn't give any thought to until that happened. So now I'm going back in, and I don't want to distress this piece because we'd be bringing it back down to the red. So I'm just lightly taking a scuffing pad, just a sanding pad. It's like a 320 grit, just to make sure that there isn't any texture, that it's nice and smooth. But that TrueCoat sprayer does such a fine mist that it just takes minimal of sanding to make it smooth. And then for my finished coat, I'm just using the Varathane Clear Wax. Thank you, Michelle and Kelly, for helping me out with this. So I'm just brushing it on with my anti-slip brush and then wiping off the excess. Now time to put it back together, and first I've got to deal with the hardware. Now I took the hardware in, I cleaned it up with some Dawn dish soap, some hot water, let it dry completely, and now to color up this beautiful hardware, I'm just using Rub and Buff. So as you see, it's a little bit messy when you're trying to put it on these pieces, so I just got some gloves on, and yes, it's exactly what it is. You rub it on. I have an old paintbrush that I'm rubbing it on, and then I'll take a paper towel and rub off the extra. So it's not necessarily going to be a pristine, like completely cover, but I don't really want it to. I like the age and that it's going to show some of the underneath metal still. I like how it gives it that aged, distressed look. But even though it is not wet like a paint is, it still needs to cure. So I let it dry for about an hour before reattaching it. So then we're now finally getting to the problem of how heavy this is. So in our thrifting adventures, we're always looking for hardware. We actually thrifted these, which is perfect. They've got a little bit of antique black on there and antique brass. They're strong enough to withstand the weight of this bad boy, and they will help whoever purchases this, and plus us, move it around. Well, you think that we would have been done. Nope, we have to finish off the top. The wheels were just so we could get it off our cart and now finish up that top. So first I have a little bit of sanding to do where I missed taping off some spots. But yep, I was glad that I protected that top. Just a little bit of sanding to do to get those little white edges where I didn't have the tape quite right. But hey, you'll have that. It's an easy fix of just sanding it off. Now, I really thought that we were at the end. This is the last thing I'm going to do with that. But did you see my rag? Did you see it? Oh my goodness. So as I'm trying to just wipe off from sanding dust, prep it for the staining, oh no, it is just that the stain's coming right off on my rag. This is my third rag and it just is coming. Yeah. Okay. So Add one more problem to the list of what's going on with this piece. So the only idea that I could come up with was, yep, get the Clorox bleach out and see if we can bleach some of this out. Because with that much stain coming out, and that being my third time of wiping it down, and it's still that much stain, it's going to change what stain I want to put on. It will change its color. Let it sit on for about 10 minutes, and now I have a clean bucket of hot water, and I'm going to have to rinse this 3 or 4 times, making sure that I got all that bleach off. By now I knew that antiquing wax, which is a brown, would match up beautifully with that hardware. So that was my plan for the top. But since this seems to be pulling red, I did just a little bit of the ink Waverly chalk paint in with the mixture to tone down, because sometimes the antiquing wax also will pull a little bit of red. But if I put a little bit of that highly pigmented black in there, it seems to do the trick. So yep, this is what I'm going to be staining my top with. Nope, it's not going to be brown paint, you all. Now it's time to do the wax off part of the wax. So here comes my arm muscles to get that excess wax off. Let my wax dry. It is good and dry now. See how beautifully you can see that wood grain through it. That little bit of black took out that red. Totally different top now. Now I'm going to use some spray polycrylic in the matte finish to seal this in. Especially for the first coat, I could brush it on, but being that I waxed it the stain, it's soaked in, I don't want to see any brush or any swoosh marks with any type of a sponge roller or anything like that. So that's why I'm choosing to spray it on to get that nice, smooth, non-textured finish. Now I did a total of 3 sprays of the polycrylic to seal this in, and now I'm going back in with my fine grit steel wool, which is the 000040, very fine steel wool, just to make sure that there's no texture on this top and that it's nice and smooth. Okay, so what did you think of today's video? Yep, we had lots of problems. It was like one after another, and then another, and another, and another, and then you're like, oh my gosh, and then the top. Anyway, we you know, I don't know. Let me know. Would you all have just like done? I'm just done. I'm not doing anymore. Or would you have kept on going? So that's just what we are. We are problem solvers. Not saying that we don't have to walk away once in a while and like, okay, just you go to your corner, you have been misbehaving, and we're gonna see you in a little bit. So that's what we did, and then come back and finish up the piece. So yeah, sometimes your brain has to storm how to solve these problems. So I hope that I have inspired you. I hope I have shared with you that no, furniture flipping, furniture taking secondhand finds and making them over isn't always an easy process. So thanks for watching today's video, guys. And as always, if you are part of our YouTube family, thank you so much. And if you're new and you're checking out this content for the first time and you liked what you saw, please hit that subscription button along with the notification bell so you know we've uploaded a new video. And we will see you next time, guys, and you can see what we're up to. Bye.